Hello, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share a brand new story every day. If you enjoy my videos, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's dive into today's story. For several years, I have been employed at an office building located in the heart of the city. The company specializes in online news and journalism, and I serve as one of the web developers. My primary responsibilities include ensuring that all articles are properly published on the website and maintaining the site's smooth operation and uptime. Usually, we had an overnight worker, but he recently quit, and the company kind of forced me to fill in until they could find someone else. At first, I didn't mind. I mean, how bad could it be? But I quickly learned it was awful. I was the only one in the building working overnight with no one to talk to and really nothing to do. I just had to sit there by myself in a huge, empty office. On this particular night, I was lucky enough to have a small project to work on. It wasn't much, just adding a page to the website, but it kept my mind occupied for about an hour. Once I finished it, I was back to just sitting and waiting. Eventually, I got up, made a cup of coffee, and decided to take a walk around the building. I had never explored any of the other floors or rooms before, so I was both bored and curious. I stepped into the stairwell and walked up to the top floor. All the lights were off except for one in the hallway. I wandered down the hallway, casually peeking into a few rooms, but there was nothing of interest. As I started to head back to the stairwell, I heard a sound from below, a door squeaking open, or at least it sounded exactly like that. Knowing I was alone in the building, a chill ran through me. I quickly calmed myself, rationalizing that it was probably just a pipe in the walls or the building settling. I walked back down to the third floor and began heading toward my office when something caught my eye. A door to one of the other rooms was open. I could have sworn all the doors were closed. I wasn't sure if my mind was playing tricks on me, but I felt certain that door had been shut. I walked over and looked inside. It was a large office, similar to mine, with rows of cubicles in the middle. All the lights were off, and only a thin line of light from the hallway seeped into the room. "Hello? Is someone in there?" I called out. My voice echoed through the hollow room, but there was no reply. Another chill ran through me. I closed the door and hurried back to my office, sitting at my desk. I chugged my coffee and rubbed my eyes, trying to clear my head. It was a bit past 2 a.m., so I just had a few more hours to get through. I ended up scrolling through my emails, wasting another few minutes when I heard it again. The same sound, this time noticeably coming from somewhere on my floor. My heart racing, I stood up and hurried to the door leading into the hallway. I opened it and looked out. The same door across the hallway was open again. My stomach tightened and I felt a wave of numbness wash over me. Something was seriously wrong. At that moment, I decided it was time to leave. I wasn't going to risk looking around anymore. I stepped into the hallway and hurried toward the stairs. As I did, I heard a footstep behind me. I quickly glanced back and saw a woman standing in the hallway, not far from the office I had just left. She looked disheveled, with tangled long dark hair and wide open eyes that made her look completely insane. I bolted for the stairs and ran all the way down to the bottom floor. I heard her footsteps behind me for a second, but then they stopped. Once I felt safe, I called the police. What's crazy is that I had eyes on the back door, and the main hallway camera could see the front door. But when the police arrived, they couldn't find her inside the building. None of the doors were unlocked or broken, so how she got in or out remained a mystery. For the next couple of weeks, the company hired an overnight security guard, but I was still terrified. Every night, I constantly looked over my shoulder, fearing that woman might have snuck back inside. With no information on her, there was no telling what she was trying to do. This happened a few years ago when I was hopping between jobs, struggling to find something that paid well enough to live on. I eventually found myself working as a security guard for a large warehouse. When they hired me, it was clear they had never had a security guard before. They basically told me to walk the perimeter and make sure nobody broke in or stole anything. A few days after being hired, I found out from one of the employees that there had been a couple of break-ins overnight recently, which was the main reason for hiring me. I probably should have been more worried, but I figured it was likely because nobody had been in the building overnight. Now that I was there, I hoped it wouldn't be an issue. The first few months were fine. Nothing happened at all. I never saw anyone come near the building on the cameras or had any encounters. Considering the pay and the lack of work I had to do, it was the easiest money I had ever made. Then, on a typical night, I came in at my usual time and made sure all the employees and staff had left. I went around and locked the place up, then went to the security office to double check that the cameras were working properly and that there were no alerts. However, I quickly noticed a flag on one of the doors indicating it wasn't shut or locked properly. I had just gone around and shut and locked all the doors, so I was reasonably confused. I got up and walked through the warehouse to the other side where the supposedly unlocked door was. It was still closed and the bolt looked like it was in place, but after a couple of tries, it swung right open. I was really confused. I looked outside just in case, but the whole area around the warehouse was empty fields, and as far as I could see, there was nobody out there. I then turned my attention to the door. I tested the bolt and it seemed to be okay, but the door would still open after a few tries. Then I looked at the notch in the door where the bolt slid into and immediately found something strange. There was a small piece of wood sitting inside the hole. The way it was stuck in there made it very obvious that someone had put it there on purpose to keep the bolt from fully shutting. Having been on duty the night before and not seeing any alerts, this had to have been done recently. I pulled it out and made sure the door was securely locked this time, then started making my way back to the security office to check the cameras. I wasn't sure if maybe an employee had done it earlier in the day for some reason or if it was someone else, but as I was walking back, an uneasy feeling came over me, and I thought back to the break-ins I had been warned about. The whole warehouse was quiet and dark, with only the dim, energy-saving lights on, which didn't help me feel any better. I rounded the corner, just about making it to the office, when I saw something move by one of the storage racks. I could barely see anything, but I made out the shape of what I think was someone's head looking around one of the boxes. I quickly started walking again, trying to pretend like I didn't see them. I made it into the office and locked the door shut, then immediately used the phone to notify the police. My voice was shaky as I was completely terrified. I then put the phone down and logged back into the security system. I looked through each of the live feeds until I got to the one of the hallway I was in. I almost physically jumped from my seat when I saw the footage. There was a man standing right on the other side of the door. The view from the camera was far away, but there was no mistaking that he was holding a weapon in his hand. It looked like maybe a large knife or even a small gun. I sat there in fear, panicking the whole time I waited, thinking that this guy might shoot the lock off the door. After a few minutes, though, he backed away. I followed him on the cameras as he went to the other side of the warehouse and exited through the door I had just repaired. He then ran off into the fields behind the warehouse. The company and the police worked together to do an investigation, but nothing ever turned up from it. Of course, I quit not too long after that and moved on to a way less stressful job. To this day, I don't know why that man broke in or what he wanted. I work at a grocery store. It shouldn't be any surprise to hear that I hate it there. The work, the customers, even some of the coworkers. But it's my first job and really the only one I was able to get with no experience. Over winter break, my school was out for weeks, which meant I wasn't forced to only work closing shifts. I talked to my manager, who said I could take up a few overnight shifts if I wanted. I gladly accepted, knowing I wouldn't have to deal with customers and mostly get to work at my own pace. I knew the night security guard, David, and when I came in for my first overnight, he showed me what to get done and left me to do it. It was just the two of us working on opposite ends of the store. Being overnight, though, it was really nice getting to work in peace and even listen to music as I did. But it only took a couple of hours for the fun of it to wear off. I was actually getting really bored and even a little sleepy, not talking to a single person. It was just past 2 a.m., so I let David know I was going to take my break. I grabbed my lunch from the fridge in the break room, then left the building and sat in my car. I scarfed down my food, hoping to have 15 minutes for a quick nap, but before I rested my eyes, I noticed someone standing next to the building. The entire parking lot was empty and dark, with only the lights from inside the retail store on, so there was no reason for anyone to be here. The guy was looking into the windows like he was trying to see inside. It was so odd that I felt like I had to stay awake to watch the guy. He looked he looked like a pretty tall dude with short hair, wearing a dark leather jacket and some old boots. I watched him for the rest of my break, so a whole 15 minutes, and the guy still stood outside, just watching through the windows of our store. Having the clock back in, I got out and started walking toward the front doors. I was walking fast, hoping to slip by without the guy having a chance to stop me, but before I even got halfway through the parking lot, he spun around and looked at me. His eyes were dead and sleepless, and he had a blank face. I kept walking, trying to make it to the door, but the guy immediately started walking over to me. He was maybe 30 feet away as I came up and started unlocking the door, and he called out to me as I hurried inside and locked it behind me. I just ignored him out of a gut feeling that he was up to no good. Maybe it was harsh of me to not at least see what he wanted, but at the time I just had a really bad feeling about him. I made my way to the back to use the bathroom, then was back on the sales floor a few minutes later. I wanted to get back to work, but I felt tempted to check on the front windows and see if the guy was still creeping around out there. So I walked up to the front, expecting to see his creepy eyes staring through the window, but he wasn't there, not even anywhere in the parking lot. I figured he left for good, so I went back to the aisle I was working in. Another few minutes went by. It was probably 3 a.m. by now, when suddenly the alarm sounded through the building. I knew exactly what it was right away. It was the back door that was in the storage area of the building. Sometimes the managers would toss stuff in the dumpster out back and accidentally trip the alarm, but with only David working, it seemed really unlikely. I started making my way to the back of the store, my footsteps echoing in the empty aisles. With every step, the uneasy feeling in my gut grew stronger. The closer I got to the doors leading to the storage room, the more the sense of dread seemed to wrap around me like a vice. If it had been David setting off the alarm, surely he would have shut it off by now. Reaching the storage area, I could hear the persistent thudding coming from the other side of the door. My pulse quickened, and I pushed the door open with a mixture of dread and determination. The sound abruptly ceased, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. As the door swung open, I was greeted by the sight of the back door wide open, letting in the cold night air. My heart raced as I scanned the area for any sign of David. "David?" I called out, my voice trembling with apprehension. There was no response. Instead, I caught a glimpse of movement down the long, dimly lit hallway. A head peeked around the corner at the far end. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the man's unsettling, vacant expression from before. A cold wave of terror washed over me, making my limbs feel heavy and leaden. In that moment of paralyzing fear, I hesitated just long enough to assess the situation before making a split-second decision. I turned on my heel and sprinted back toward the front of the store. My heart pounded in my chest as I flung open the front door and fled outside, diving into my car. Once inside, I fumbled with my phone and dialed 911, realizing with a sinking feeling that I still had no idea where David was or if he was safe. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights cutting through the darkness. I watched from the safety of my car as they rushed into the building. It felt like an eternity before they emerged again, and my anxiety finally began to ebb when they confirmed that David was unharmed. He had managed to lock himself in the manager's office after the intruder had broken in and chased him. The thudding noises I heard were David's desperate attempts to alert anyone and fend off the man as he pounded on the office door, trying to force his way inside. The intruder had fled as soon as I left, vanishing into the night before the police could apprehend him. We later obtained a blurry image of his face from the security cameras, which was printed and posted on the back wall to alert other employees and help them stay vigilant. As far as we know, he never returned, and his motives that night remain a mystery. I'm just grateful that my instincts led me to act quickly and keep myself and David safe. The experience left a lingering sense of unease, but it also taught me the importance of trusting my gut in moments of danger. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share the video. See you next time.